Megan, thank you so much for being on the show. Very much appreciate it. And also thank you for your feedback on Asset Mule. I know a lot of the time since we've been doing research, which is something I know near and dear to your heart, we are able to make new friends and then it's really cool to have them on the podcast as well, just kind of sharing what they're most passionate about. So thank you so much.
Of course, yeah, no, Asset Mule seems like a really cool software you guys are developing. I had a really great conversation with Justin when he's providing a demo for me. And yeah, I can definitely see it useful being in my day-to-day as a consultant. So lots of sales enablement materials being developed over here.
Cool. Well, really appreciate that. And yeah, we've been on this journey for a little bit now. You really dig in pretty deep into like customer research. And it's funny because, yeah, I don't think that customer research gets the shine that it really requires, right? Like the fact that we do so many things without doing customer research properly, specifically like if we think about like the early stage startup or product marketers, customer research really has to be underneath everything. I mean, how could you deploy anything, right? Product, right? How could you deploy any marketing or any sales without customer research? So it's cool to see that you've really like kind of dug deep into this topic and talk a lot about customer research and are super passionate about it. Anything that you kind of at a high level can think about that you can give advice around, like maybe avoiding some costly mistakes or restarts and these sort of things that come to mind that could be really helpful for folks
Right.
looking to do customer research?
Yeah, so I actually really started digging into customer research because I kept finding myself very frustrated as a product marketer because I was always cleaning up a lot of messages like failed business initiatives or failed product launches. And there's a lot of things, there's a lot of aspects that go into those things. But one thing that was very clear to me was that we weren't really talking to customers enough and really understanding their pain points and needs. And this has happened in lots of different instances. And then another thing I was finding frustrating as a product marketer is um, just always being, as a consultant, being in-house was always being challenged. Like marketing sometimes struggles with everyone in the company thinking they're a marketer themselves. And so I got more into research to have more leverage in my role, like be able to provide like actual insights and metrics and outcomes, because I was actually stepping in front of the customer and getting the information that we needed. Just like a flashy headline for a newsletter I wrote recently for Olivine. But what I really mean by that is just like is creating a culture in an organization to be more proactive instead of reactive. And so costly restarts are, if you do proper research up front, instead of like spending months of like development time and budget, and you release something that no one wants, like that's a lot of wasted time, a lot of budget, and you could find yourself falling behind on competitors, or like, for example, and I've seen this happen on several occasions, but in particularly painful, but I've been in like major price rollouts that were really painful for our company. There was no research done. It ended up, we almost kind of bankrupted some of our customers in our ecosystem. We created competition. Like not like the lack of research doesn't always mean like major mistakes or restarts, but if with that, I guess it depends on like the culture of your company. Like, yeah. So that's kind of what I mean by that.
If you were to think about like the pricing example, what does that look like when it doesn't go well? You mentioned some like competitive kind of nuances, these sort of things, but what does that actually look like for folks?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can revisit that one. That's the one that always sticks in my mind. Of course, there's there's other examples as well. But a few years ago, when I was working in house, we had just been acquired, and the new board mandated price increase, which is not unheard of. But this particular organization, we hadn't done a price increase in like the whole tenure of the company. So at this
Mm,
point, it was like 18 years old. And the board wanted to update not only the price, but the license model as well. But we had a whole partner ecosystem of resellers who had built their own businesses around our license model. So when we went and surprised them with a price increase and a license change, it fundamentally disrupted their own business models.
mm,
And so we as a company, there was a ton of backlash. The forums were filled with like hate speech at our company.
wow.
We had our partners and our customers calling us like in tears, like I'm not, like I can't make this work. And then we had to go back and like create all these special incentives and like incentives, coupons, rebates, like special like contracts for them. And we lost a lot of trust from our customers.
Mm,
And then on top of that, several of our customers were like, you know what, screw it. I will build your software. Like I'll just duplicate it. So we
mm,
created a bunch of competition. So like that's like an extreme edge case, but like after that happened, and so like what basically at the start of that, when product marketing was brought in for this pricing rollout, the only our only scope was to deliver messaging. And of course,
mm,
we are like, okay, have you guys talked to anyone? Have you guys done any like price sensitivity testing? Like, so after that fact, it was kind of a complete failure. We used that as leverage to convince leadership to let us do more research for
mm.
upcoming releases. And it didn't solve all of the internal problems, but we did have a lot more successful launches after our learnings from that in particular.
I gotta ask, what is it that maybe causes a leadership team to just not have what seems to be so much of a best practice, right? Like we might want to actually like contact our customers, get
Yeah.
some feedback around pricing. Is this even something that they can do? Even just gauging like the amount of churn that might occur from a significant change. Like I guess I just have trouble a lot of the times just wrapping my head around how, if you are customer focused like a C-suite leadership should be, how you could make that kind of misstep, right? Like any sort of thoughts around what you've observed?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to tell, like, I don't want to assume. It does seem like there's always it seems like the biggest like friction for leadership, it might be budget, but research doesn't have to be expensive. It can be basically free, like except for the cost of your employee's salary. But I think it's really just time. They research is very time intensive, especially if you're going to do it right. But I
Mm,
think if you kind of create like micro goals, it can be part of your, you know, everyday like launch process, like if it's just part of the product life cycle, which it should be. But I guess I would say I think it's because it's time consuming, and maybe they think they know the customer better because maybe when
mm,
they first started building the product, they were the end user. And now that the organization has grown, they've kind of like lost touch.
mm.
And so either it's their own assumptions or spending too much time being reactive to competitors, like just building bright, new, shiny things. Like this competitor's got it, we got to compete with them. Like, and that is a tactic, that's a strategy, but it shouldn't be your only strategy.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the time I've observed this, there's unfortunately a lot of the time I think a too much of an emphasis on being reactive towards competitors and not enough time actually like being customer centric, right? It looks like
Yeah.
you've seen that a lot of that. Any sort of things that you would give or advice that you would give leaders out there or product marketers around maybe like tastefully managing up, right? And saying, hey, leadership, like we have to be customer centric. We have to be able to continue to have a pulse on the market and not get wrapped up on all these other things, without abandoning competitive intelligence and those things, obviously, but
Yeah.
finding a balance so we're not reactive and making like stupid decisions or emotional decisions or decisions based on fear, right?
Yeah. I think like maybe the easiest way to negotiate with leadership on this or convince them that it's needed is just creating like micro research projects that you can kind of do iteratively and then start building that trust, showing results early and often. And finding allies within the company because I know product marketing is not the only department that's interested in customer research. Product managers find it super valuable. Customer success is going to be your best friends, and just kind of, I guess, trying to mm, create outcomes, smaller outcomes there, and then building trust with leadership.
Do you have any examples of a like micro research project that could be easy to just sort of get up and get started quickly without having to go through a lot of red tape?
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of really cool tools out there right now. Like, for example, so I'm working with a client right now, and I hadn't heard of this company before, but they use a tool called Ballpark.
Mhm.
I think they're based in the UK, and I've started running all of these like micro tests with them, like price sensitivity, message testing, A/B testing, user testing, and they're all just like little micro experiments that you can do. And literally, when you set up a test and submit it, I think they guarantee results within like 2 hours. Like it's pretty insane.
Wow.
So like if you wanted to test a hypothesis, like I could get you results the next day. You know what I mean? Like they're really good at like identifying the demographic, reaching out to them. So like obviously that's a tool that costs money. If it was, if you weren't working with much budget, um, just kind of using, like a free Google survey, or if you have, I mean, most marketers are in HubSpot, like they have surveys in there. So just um, plant little data gatherers within the natural marketing ecosystem and kind of collect it there on the side is super easy way to do it.
Do you have a preference between doing interviews on like Zoom or doing in-person focus group type interviews or one-on-ones in person?
Yeah, so I actually haven't done any in-person interviews post-COVID. So it's all been, but one of the tools that I really like to use is called Grain AI. And it's an AI powered recording tool. So it does like the auto transcription. I can flag and highlight certain insights and then leave notes there. It always provides a summary. It's pretty great. But usually the setup is I've got a Zoom meeting with them. I'm recording it as backup, and then I invite the Grain AI to the meeting for most of the work. So
Awesome. If you were to think about some of the tools that PMMs in general, should be using to conduct customer research, you mentioned like the surveys, ballpark type functionality. You just mentioned Grain.ai. Any other tools? Of course, you mentioned also like Google Forms, which is like
yeah,
I think pretty
low
inexpensive,
budget, easy stuff.
low, yeah, easy stuff to do. But any or other sort of tools that you would maybe qualify as being in that customer research stack that a PMM can leverage?
Yeah, I know a lot of people really like Gong. I haven't had a chance to use it, but I know that's a pretty popular one. Honestly, a lot of like there are really great tools out there. I really like Ballpark. Grain AI is like I feel like a must-have. I do so much of my customer research using ChatGPT, um, and it's easy. It's free. I'll prompt ChatGPT for interview questions. I'll tell ChatGPT like, this is the type of research I want to do. This is the outcome I'm looking for. Can you help me, generate some interview questions, and I'll refine it from there, and I'll keep tweaking it. And then even like, a lot of the surveys I'll just get like multiple choice or, rating scales that are easy to analyze. But if I have open-ended questions, again, I'll go to ChatGPT I'll drop in all of the open-ended results, and I'm like, can you help me identify themes based off of their responses and categorize it? And then of course, like I'll go in and refine it from there. But like, I feel guilty saying that because the GPT be working real hard. I'll say another one that's easy, and this is back from like my community manager day. So before I was a product marketer, I was a community manager. That's kind of how I broke into tech. And a lot of it's just like, scraping the forums, or like if your company has a Slack or Discord channel that's customer facing, if you're collecting NPS scores, things like that. Those are great resources to kind of get in front of the customer and identify, feature requests, customer pain points, like what are they complaining about? Go to your customer support, like tech support departments, and ask them like, what's the most common question? Like, what are they struggling with? Can kind of use that data to communicate with product development about that. Or those are great resources as well, and they're already happening within your organization, so it's not a
Yeah.
new process.
Awesome. Yeah. Community, leveraging community insights. That's awesome to then feed what we do as PMMs. That's
Yeah,
super cool.
yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, Megan, thank you so much for being on the show. If folks wanted to connect with you, let's say on social, or get some advice around customer research or product marketing, what are the best channels to reach you?
Yeah, I mean, you can always drop me a DM on LinkedIn. I do consulting for both Aggregate Insights. That's more of a market research firm, and then product marketing with Olivine Marketing. So you can work with me directly. And then if I'm part of the Product Marketing Alliance, so I'm there on the Slack channel.
Yeah.
I'm down
Shout
to
out to
collaborate and
PMA.
meet other product marketers.
Awesome. Such a great community. I know that we've met a lot of really cool people via PMA, and just have learned a lot. So shout out to them. Awesome, Megan. Well, have a wonderful day, and thanks so much again for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.